Today, we are tackling a question that trips up pretty much everybody at some point. With this huge sea of choices, how in the world do you pick the right option? Now, here's a hint. It's almost never the one with the lowest price tag. And by the end of this, you're going to understand the crucial difference between an option's price and its actual value.
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to bust the cheap option myth wide open. Then we'll literally dissect an option's price into its two hidden parts. After that, we'll walk through a real-world case study of 3 different calls to see how this whole thing plays out. And from there, we'll give you a super simple framework to guide your own choices. We'll even touch on puts before we land on the one final question you should always ask yourself.
All right, first up, let's talk about this really powerful but super misleading illusion that gets almost every new options trader into trouble. So, you pull up an options chain, and what happens? Your eyes just naturally go to the lowest prices. It's totally human. You see one option for, say, $1.50 and another for over $8, and your brain just screams, "That's the one. That's the bargain." But hold on. Is that really the cheapest option, or is it just the one with the lowest price tag? Believe me, the difference is everything.
You know, this Beanie Baby analogy is just perfect. Think about it. A Beanie Baby had its intrinsic value, the fabric, the stuffing, what it was actually made of. But then it had this massive hype value driven by all that speculation. Well, an option works the exact same way. Its price is a mix of solid, real value and this other speculative value that's all based on hope and time.
So to really get what you're paying for, we need to crack open that price tag and look at the two things inside, the real value versus the hype.
The first piece is called intrinsic value. Just think of this as the real, tangible, no-nonsense worth of the option at this very second. So for a call option, it's just the difference between the stock price and the strike price. Like if a stock's trading at $52 and you have a $50 call, its intrinsic value is exactly $2. That's the profit you could lock in right now. Simple as that. Okay, the second piece is time value. This is the extra bit of cash you're paying for the potential, the chance for the stock to move your way before it expires. It's basically the price of hope, the price of opportunity, and it's the price you pay for that constantly ticking clock. This, my friends, is the hype value. And this shows you the simple but incredibly powerful math. The part of your option's price that is absolutely guaranteed to disappear, kind of like a melting ice cube, is the time value. And to find it, all you do is take the total price you paid and subtract the real intrinsic value. Whatever's left over, well, that's the premium you paid purely for time.
Okay, theory's great and all, but let's make this really concrete. Here's a case study. Imagine a stock, let's call it XYZ, is trading at $67 a share. You're bullish. You think it's going higher. So you look at the options chain and you see 3 different calls. Which one do you pick?
All right, here are our 3 contenders. That April 70 call sure looks like the bargain at just $1.50, right? But look closer. Its intrinsic value is 0. That means 100% of that price is pure time value. It's all hype. Now go to the other end. The October 65 call costs the most at $8.30. But check out its time value. You're paying $6.30 for a 7-month window for your idea to play out. That's a lot of runway.
So you see, the big takeaway here is that each option is a completely different strategy. They are not interchangeable at all. Are you betting on a rocket ship launch in the next 2 weeks? Well, that's the April call. Or are you betting on a slower, steadier climb over the next several months? That's the October call. Your choice has to match your thesis for the stock.
And the potential outcomes? They're wildly different. Let's say you nail it. I mean, the stock just rockets up 9% in 1 week. That cheap April call, the gamble, could just explode for a massive 146% profit. That's the incredible power of leverage when your timing is absolutely perfect.
But, and this is a huge but, here's the dangerous flip side. What if the stock just drifts sideways, or maybe only moves up a little? Because that April options price was nothing but time value, it decays incredibly fast. You could easily lose your entire investment, a 100% loss, even if the stock didn't fall at all. That is the real cost of buying pure time.
And this brings us to the main takeaway of this entire explainer. How do you actually apply this logic to your own decisions? Well, it all comes down to a really simple, repeatable mental process.
So, before you ever click that buy button, I want you to run the option through this powerful mental model. First, look at the price. Then, immediately figure out how much of that price is real value, the intrinsic part, and how much is just the cost of time.
And once you see that number, the amount you're paying just for time, you have to ask yourself the single most critical question there is.
And here it is. This is the whole game right here. Can the stock price move high enough and fast enough to overcome the inevitable decay of its time value and still leave me with a decent profit? See, you're not just betting on direction. You're betting on magnitude and velocity against a clock that is always melting away.
Now, I can hear you asking, okay, this is great for calls, but what happens when I'm bearish? What if I think a stock is going to fall?
Well, the great news is the logic is universal. This entire framework works the exact same way for put options. Intrinsic value for a put is just how far the stock is below the strike price. Everything else is time value. The question stays the same, just in reverse. Can the stock fall far enough, fast enough to outrun that time decay? So, to wrap everything up, let's distill all of this down into one final thought. One last question to guide your option selections from this point forward. Are you buying real, tangible value? Or are you just buying time? Answering that question for any option you're looking at is the key that unlocks confident trading. And once you see that difference, you can never unsee it.